Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I know what some of you are thinking, but before you go into the comment section and write something like, just buy a cross-country mountain bike, hang on a minute, watch the video first, and then you can go into the comment section and write whatever you like. Gravel riding is nothing new. I think we can all agree on that. A lot of people have been doing it pretty much since humans first invented the bicycle. But gravel bikes are new. In less than a decade, this style of bike has evolved by mixing elements of road, cyclocross, and mountain biking. And this evolution is happening really, really quickly. Blink and you will miss another step. So pay attention now, because something important is afoot. RockShox, SRAM and Zipp, all part of the same group of companies, have just launched a whole load of products, all under the same heading, Explore. Except there's no vowels in it, because hey, who needs vowels? It's 2021. We've got suspension fork, we've got a dropper seat post, we've got gravel specific wheels with increased compliance and stability, and we've also got new 1x specific gravel gear ratios in there. Now, I appreciate at this point, some of you might be thinking, well, there's nothing new here. Gravel suspension forks have been around for a while. Smaller diameter dropper seat posts that you can fit into gravel bikes, again, have been around for a while. Zipp themselves have been focusing on compliance for their most recent NSW and Firecrest wheel sets. And SRAM had gravel specific gear ratios right back when Force 1x was launched, what, 8 years ago?
But in addition to the individual products coming from brands with big reputations like RockShox and Zipp, what also gives this the potential to be something of a game changer is that it gives us consumers the ability to easily spec exactly what type of gravel bike, from racy to rowdy, that we want to ride, but also bike brands too.
And so actually you could end up finding more of them available to buy on complete bikes, just like this Canyon Grizzle, in fact, which comes with these suspension forks. Now it's Grizzle that does have a vowel, it's got an I, but arguably not enough. Must be just a gravel thing, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the range, dive into some of the tech details, and also try and work out just what these products can do to the gravel riding experience. Experience, but with lots of vowels. We'll start with the gears, shall we? So previously, with the 12-speed AXS group sets, Red, Force and Rival, the largest cassette you could get was a 1036. Or, using the magic of the wireless AXS platform, you could actually fit a SRAM mountain bike rear derailleur, which would then allow you to fit an almighty 1052 mountain bike cassette and still pair it up with your road crankset and your drop bar shifters. Now that is very cool, but there was still something of a hole for people like me that didn't quite need the full range of 1052, but were after something just a little more than 1036. Sorry, you say fussy people. No, not fussy, it's just gear ratios are important, right? Anyway, now we have got a 1044 option available at both Force and Rival levels. The rear derailleurs are also different as well though. So although this says Red on it, on the back there is a small Explore graphic to denote that this is different from standard. So it's got a longer cage. The grass here isn't standard. That's something I added in yesterday. It's also got a longer knuckle so that it can better tackle these larger cassettes. And whereas your standard AXS rear mech is both compatible with 1x and 2x, this one is 1x only. Let's move on to some more exotica, shall we? Starting with the RockShox kit. Now, if you're not familiar with the brand, they are a legendary mountain bike company. Although this isn't their first foray into suspension forks for 700C road bike size wheels. Oh no, because back in the early 90s, just a couple of years after their very first mountain bike fork was launched, they debuted the Ruby. named after the hellishly cobbled Paris-Roubaix. Incredibly, a race that they won 3 times on the bounce in 92, 93 and 94. Now you think with hindsight that should have been something of a light bulb moment, that suspension is faster over bumps, no matter whether you're riding a mountain bike or a road bike. But unfortunately, Paris-Roubaix is something of an outlier in the road calendar, and also gravel bikes haven't been invented yet. So the Ruby was quietly retired. Now though, you have the son of Ruby, Rudy. That's right. Aside though from sharing 3 out of the 4 letters in its name, this bears no resemblance to the Ruby of 30 years ago. Suspension has moved on a long way in that time. But while the tech has been refined on mountain bikes in those years, make no mistake, this fork has been designed from the ground up for gravel. What does that mean exactly? Well, it's got less travel for a start, down to 30mm as standard, although there is a 40mm option. That's because RockShox say you don't need more, and also because having shorter travel means you preserve the handling of the bike, because longer travel means a longer fork, which therefore means you get a higher front end, the geometry gets distorted, and it kind of dilutes that fast responsive handling, slows it all down. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing per se, but if part of the reason why you like gravel bikes is because you like the fact that they feel fast and agile, having shorter travel is therefore really important. If you've only got 30mm of suspension travel to play with, how do you make the most of it? Well, in this case, RockShox say they've changed the damper, the tuning in the damper, which comes from one of their mountain bike forks, and also reduced the size of the air spring. So it makes the fork really responsive to small bumps. Small bumps like gravel or little rocks that you'd find on a gravel trail. They have also increased the spring rate so that the fork doesn't just blow through the travel all in one go. It kind of ramps up, which means that you don't ever feel it sort of bottoming out, which is where you get to the end of the travel. Now you do have the option to lock the fork out if you're riding on tarmac for any length of time. There's just a little lever that switches it, which means you then can't really move it. Now, in this clip, you can kind of see how effective even just 30mm of suspension is. On one side, you've got a locked out fork, and on the other, it's active. And it's quite clear that the shocks coming through to the handlebars are massively muted. But perhaps even more importantly, you can see that the front wheel tracks the ground more closely. So you get more traction when cornering and also when braking. The fork weighs 1,215 grams, which is light for a telescopic fork, although clearly it's going to weigh quite a bit more than a rigid carbon fork. It retails for $799, 869 euros, or £779. What's going to be interesting though is to see how much bike brands spec complete bikes with these forks, because if this Canyon is an example, then it doesn't seem to be retailing for very much more than the rigid version. Now, one final point to mention, I really like this. You can fit full-length mudguards or fenders to the suspension forks. And actually, RockShox have got their own mini fender as well, which I think is a nice touch. Next up, we've got the RockShox Reverb AXS Explore dropper seat post. Oh yes. Now the Reverb has been kind of like the gold standard of mountain bike suspension posts for ages. It was first introduced back in 2010. It's been revised a lot over the years, including getting in on that wireless access treatment to declutter your bike. So there's your battery there. It's the same as the ones that fit in the rear derailleur, and the motor is back there as well. Now this isn't though just a shrunk down mountain bike seat post. Those have an air spring and an oil damper. This does away with the oil damper and it's just got an air spring there. So it saves a little bit of weight. It also means that you can actually shrink the internals down so that it will now fit inside that narrow diameter 27.2 seat post that's completely standard across just about all gravel bikes. Now the added bonus of that air spring is it also gives you a little bit of mini suspension. So when the post is fully extended like this, it's completely locked out. It provides a totally rigid pedaling platform. But when you depress the post, either a fraction or through all of its 75 or 50 millimeters of travel, depending on which post option you've got, then you'll get a little bit of suspension there. Not like your fork, but it's noticeable, and it's also tunable as well, because you can alter the air pressure inside to tailor how much travel you get. To activate the post, I've got mine set up so that it works when I press both my shift levers at the same time. So that opens the post, and then using my body weight, I can drop it to any point in its travel. As I said, I've got a 75, but there is also a 50 millimeter travel option as well. To get the post to return, you simply unweight it and then press the buttons as well. Now, important to note, you don't need a wireless drivetrain to be able to run a Reverb AXS seat post. You could just have a remote shifter on the bars with a little transmission box, and that'll work absolutely fine as well. Now, you might be wondering whether or not, with that battery and the motor to the rear of the post, whether you can fit a saddlebag. I certainly was. SRAM said that yes, that's absolutely fine. The one thing you've got to watch out though is that you don't get any wear on your shaft, because if you've got a worn shaft, that might void your warranty. By dropping your seat, it means that you can lower your center of gravity when riding more technical terrain. And yes, even 50 millimeters makes a difference, because you can lower your hips and really move the bike around underneath you. Price for the Reverb AXS is €600, $600 or £500. And if you don't have AXS shifters, then you will need to buy the control separately as well. Weight, just like the suspension forks, it's going to add a little bit compared to the rigid version. But again, like the suspension forks, it's significantly lighter than a mountain bike equivalent, about 560 grams for this post. Lastly, and perhaps most intriguingly, we've got the Zipp 101 Explore wheel set. If you've been paying attention to Zipp's wheel releases over the last year or so, you'll know there's been a lot of talk about increased compliance and how absorbing vibrations from the road at the wheel can effectively help you go faster and save you, the rider, watts. A lot of the inspiration from that increased compliance on their road wheels came from when they developed their 3.0 Moto mountain bike wheels. And if you want to see that inspiration taken to the next level, then have a look at these. Effectively, the gravel version of the mountain bike wheel set, taking compliance on another step and also adding in what's called ankle compliance, which is where the rim can effectively pivot around the spoke. And they can do that because, unlike just about every other rim out there, these are a single walled rim. So where the spoke nipple attaches to the rim, that is it, as opposed to there being a cavity and then another wall of rim in between that and the air chamber. And so it allows that sideways flex. The reason for that, Zipp say, is that if you hit rocks like off-center, as most of them probably would be, then the rim can flex slightly sideways to absorb some of that impact. And it's particularly noticeable, they say, when going around corners, as you might imagine, being able to flex sideways. The rim is still laterally stiff. They've been able to add that extra level of compliance just through clever use of carbon fiber. You'll also see when looking at it, as well as a really flat profile, it's incredibly wide, 27 millimeters wide internally. They've got hookless sidewalls, and despite battering through rock gardens, as you see in this video, I've been able to put just 30 PSI in these 40 millimeter wide Zipp tyres. The price for these wheels are $1,800, €1,840, £1,645. Weight is a shade over 1,600 grams, and they also, as well as coming in this standard 700C diameter, also come in a smaller 650B diameter. Now, I have whistled through all of this tech. In fact, there are more explored products on this bike that I haven't really talked through, like the Zipp handlebars and also the Zipp tyres. But there is one very important question we need to try and answer. I suspect that you might be wondering what it feels like to ride this setup. Now, having spent a couple of 100 kilometers on it, I can tell you that it feels fun, in essence. Fun is the best way of describing it. The rougher the trail, the more fun this becomes. The faster you go and the more comfortably you do it. I'm quite intrigued to know how much faster, so I'm going to try and find out. I'm going to ride a local mountain bike trail. It's a great piece of infrastructure. It's a man-made trail on the outskirts of a major city. It's been designed to allow beginners to ride around it as well as give thrills to intermediate riders too. I think one hot lap, a responsible hot lap, should tell us plenty. Right, on my marks, get set, go. Hi, mate. Well, it's quite interesting actually. I mean, you'll see that the rain's coming, so I mean, it has been a bit slippy, but that's an all right time. 11th on the Strava segment. Got caught up in traffic a little bit as well, but what's more interesting is over that full loop, Rich Payne, you remember from GMBN, did this a few months back and did 17:30, and well, I've done 16:40 on a gravel bike, so tells you something, doesn't it? Do you need this new tech? No. But then I don't think SRAM would say that you need this tech either. What they've done is create products that give us consumers options. Options to tailor our bikes for the kind of riding that we want to.
Now, although this bike is spec'd with all of the Explore products and so is definitely on the rowdier side of gravel, you could just choose the non-rowdy bits like the G40 tyres and the 1044 one-bike cassette and fit them to a super fast, racy gravel bike. Or go the whole hog.
Do you want to go further off the beaten track, or do you want to ride in more comfort? Or do you just want to have more fun on your bikes on terrain that probably would not have been fun but actually just have been punishing? I mean, this Explore range definitely does blur the boundaries between gravel and mountain bikes. And I know from reading the comment section in GCN videos previously that a lot of people don't like blurred boundaries in life. I think we like neatly defined categories. And if something doesn't completely fit, it can make some people very angry. Generally, I'm not one of those people, but I can sympathise because I find fixed gear cyclocross bikes make me feel very angry indeed. That is a boundary that should not ever have been blurred. Now, I've never ridden one, so I haven't publicly admitted that I think that they're the spawn of the devil, but I strongly suspect that they are. Still, does it matter that boundaries have been blurred? Not really. People can go and ride fixed gear cyclocross bikes as much as they want. It doesn't actually matter. In the same way that if you look at this bike and you think, actually, I'm going to ride a mountain bike instead, that's fine. Or indeed, if you look at this and say, that is the bike for me, that is also fine as well. What I think this tech will do is encourage more people to do more cool stuff on bikes. What that cool stuff is, it's entirely down to you. But fundamentally, it gives us options. Yes, a cross-country mountain bike is probably going to be faster in a lot of situations, But speed is not just what it's all about. Gravel bikes feel faster, they're more responsive, they're more agile, they're also more comfortable over longer distances. Having a drop handlebar as opposed to a flat handlebar is hugely important for that. And you know what? If I was going to have to ride much tarmac, I would definitely take one of these over a mountain bike. I would be very, very interested to hear your thoughts on this. I suspect the comment section will be an interesting place to be, so you are now allowed to start typing away. Let us know what you think. I will be reading with interest. Now, also let us know what you think, of course, about the new products in the Explore range. Thank you very much to SRAM for giving us the opportunity to make this video. And please, if you've enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up.